If a delivery note ever tells you, "Do not look in the windows," do not treat that like a suggestion. A few winters ago, February of 2023, I was driving deliveries in a small Minnesota town where the winter weather doesn't just show up, it takes ownership. When the snow gets bad, the roads turn into reflective black ribbons, and the world shrinks to whatever your headlights can carve out. That's also when the delivery apps pay the most, because everybody wants to stay warm and pretend the storm isn't happening. That Tuesday night, the snow was coming in sideways, thick enough that it felt like driving through a tunnel made of TV static. The wind kept picking up, dropping, then picking up again, and every time it rose, it shoved loose powder across the road like it was trying to erase tire tracks in real time. I remember thinking it was the kind of night where you don't stop moving, because if you do, the cold starts making decisions for you. I stayed online longer than I should have, because Rent doesn't care about weather. At 10:45 p.m., I got a ping for a big order from a local steakhouse. The payout was ridiculous, almost $40, for a drive that looked short on the map. I hit accept without really looking, grabbed the food a few minutes later, and let the smell of butter and pepper convince me this was a good idea. The GPS led me away from the town center, past the last gas station with bright lights, past the only bar still open, then out toward the rural outskirts where the houses are spaced out and the woods start swallowing the property lines. The farther I drove, the less the road looked like a road. It was just two darker grooves through a pale sheet, with glare ice hiding underneath. When I turned onto the customer street, I didn't see another car, no porch lights, no mailboxes with reflective numbers, just trees and snow, and the hypnotic drift of flakes in my high beams. The address number finally appeared on a post half buried in a plow berm. I pulled up, and my stomach sank. The house sat way back from the road, a big two-story colonial, the kind people buy when they want to look established. The driveway was at least 100 yards long, winding uphill, and it hadn't been plowed at all. A foot of fresh snow covered it, smooth and untouched, except for one set of faint tracks that looked older, like someone had driven out earlier and the storm had been trying to bury the proof. I was in a Honda Civic. There was no universe where I was getting up that hill without becoming a permanent fixture in a snowbank. So I did what drivers always do. I texted the customer, "Hey, I can't make it up the driveway. Can you meet me at the bottom?" 5 minutes passed. No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. I stared at the hot bag on my passenger seat, at the payout on the screen, and did the dumb math. $40 versus 10 minutes of cold. I told myself I'd just walk it up, take the photo, and be gone. Before I got out, I checked the delivery instructions again to make sure there wasn't some gate code I'd missed. The note was short and weirdly specific. Leave at front door. Do not knock or ring bell. Dogs will bark. Do not look in the windows. The first part was normal. The last part made my throat go tight. On nights like that, the snow has a personality. It fills in footprints, it rounds off edges, it makes everything look softer than it is. But it also steals depth perception, so your headlights turn the world into a flat painting. You can be 10 feet from a ditch and not realize it until your tires hit the slope. Driving deliveries in that kind of weather is a slow bargain with physics. You promise not to rush, and in return, the road lets you keep moving. That driveway felt like breaking that bargain. Every step up the hill, the wind would push at my back, then switch and slap my face, and I kept thinking about how quickly a person can get turned around in a whiteout when there are no landmarks, just black tree trunks and the faint shape of a house. I remember the way my phone screen lit up my gloves as I walked, and how that tiny blue-white rectangle felt like the only modern thing left in an old, winter-locked world. The woods didn't echo. The snow ate sound. Even my own footsteps seemed reluctant, like they didn't want to announce me. Snow got into my boots the moment I stepped out. It wasn't deep enough to swallow my legs, but it was that heavy, grabby kind that sticks to your jeans and turns to slush the second your body heat touches it. I pulled my hood tight, tucked the paper bag under my arm like a football, and started up the driveway. Halfway up, the wind shifted and pushed a curtain of snow across the hill. For a second, the house disappeared, and all I had was the sound of my own breathing and the soft squeak of rubber soles packing snow. The woods on either side were black walls. I couldn't see between the trunks, and that made me feel watched in the most basic animal way. When the house came back into view, it looked worse. Pitch black, no porch light, no warm glow from behind curtains. It didn't look occupied. It looked abandoned, like it had been emptied and left to the storm. The only reason I didn't turn around were those faint tire tracks. Somebody had been here recently. The steps up to the front porch were glazed with ice under the snow. I planted each foot carefully, feeling for that slick, glassy surface that doesn't give you any warning. At the top, I placed the food on the doormat, took the proof of delivery photo, and told myself to leave. That's when the instruction popped back into my head like a dare. Do not look in the windows. To the right of the front door was a massive bay window, all bare glass with no curtains. I tried to keep my eyes forward, but the window was right there, reflecting the dim glow of my phone screen. I gave in and glanced over.
The living room was empty. Not minimalist empty, vacant. No couch, no TV, no lamps, no boxes. Just hardwood floors and pale walls that caught what little outside light existed. Except in the center of the room stood a mannequin. A male mannequin dressed in a gray suit. Its arms hung straight at its sides. Its head was a smooth oval, no facial features at all. It was positioned perfectly, facing the window, facing me. I felt my skin tighten, like my body was bracing for impact. I told myself it was a staging thing, an art thing, a weird landlord trying to make a point. But the longer I looked, the more it felt like it was there for me specifically. Like the empty room had been made empty so that one shape would have nothing competing with it. I turned away fast. My brain started feeding me instructions that weren't words. Get off the porch, get to the car, don't give it time to become anything else. I went down the steps too quickly. On the last one, my boot found black ice hidden under powder. My feet shot out and I slammed onto the driveway hard enough that my elbow went numb. The paper bag flew but didn't tear. For a second, I just sat there in the snow, stunned and embarrassed, wondering if anyone inside had heard. Then, instinctively, I looked back at the window. The house was still dark. No light snapped on, no silhouette approached the door. But the mannequin wasn't where it had been. It was right up against the glass now, not fallen, not leaning like it had toppled forward. Upright, pressed close enough that its blank forehead looked like it was touching the pane. It loomed over the porch, ankle downward, like it was staring at the exact spot where I had been standing seconds earlier. My mind tried to do the math. The time I'd been on the ground wasn't long, 5 seconds maybe.
In that time, something made of hard plastic had crossed 20 feet of empty hardwood and reached the window without making a sound loud enough for me to notice over the storm. And the worst part wasn't the impossibility. It was the feeling that it had moved because I'd looked. Like the instruction wasn't a joke, it was a rule. I didn't scream. There wasn't time for that kind of reaction. My body went straight to flight, pure and simple. I got up and ran down that unplowed driveway, knees high, slipping sideways in the deep snow. The storm erased my breath as soon as it left my mouth. Halfway down, a sound carried from behind me. Not the wind, not a tree cracking. A single, sharp tap against glass, like a knuckle. Then a second tap, slightly faster. I refused to look back. The woods felt closer now, pressing in. The driveway felt longer. My car sat at the bottom like a lifeboat, and I hit it hard enough to rock it when I yanked the door open. I slammed myself into the driver's seat, locked the door immediately, and then fumbled the keys because my fingers weren't doing what I told them to. When the engine finally turned over, the headlights flared across the hill. For a split second, the beam caught the front porch again. The bay window reflected white, and in that reflection, the mannequin's outline looked taller than it should have, as if it had been lifted closer to the glass. I threw the car into reverse and slid sideways before I regained traction. My tires spun, then bit. I got turned around, nearly kissed the ditch, and didn't care. I drove like I was late to my own funeral until I hit the main road with streetlights. Only then did my hands start shaking in a way that made it hard to keep the wheel straight. I pulled into a convenience store lot, sat there with the heat blasting my face, and called support. I told them I felt unsafe at the drop-off.
I said the driveway was unplowed and the house was unlit and there was dangerous ice. I didn't say the word mannequin because that word turns a complaint into a story, and stories don't get taken seriously. Support was polite, automated, and useless. They said they'd noted. They asked if I completed the delivery. I said yes. They thanked me for keeping the community fed. I sat there staring at the reflection of my own face in the dark windshield, trying to convince myself that what I'd seen had a normal explanation. But the instruction note wouldn't leave my head. Do not look in the windows. Because if it was just a prank, why write that? And if it was a person inside, why order food in the middle of a blizzard and then ignore every message? The storm kept dropping snow onto the lot, a soft, steady hiss. It sounded too much like someone whispering. I tried to keep working that night, mostly because I didn't want to drive home and sit alone with my thoughts. But every time a new order popped up, my brain pictured another long driveway disappearing into trees. I declined 3 in a row and finally went offline. All the way home, I kept checking my mirrors, expecting headlights that weren't there. The roads were slick, and every time my tire slid an inch, my stomach dropped like I was falling again on that porch step. I slept with the curtains open because I wanted to be able to see outside, which doesn't make sense until you've had a night where you feel like the dark is hiding something that can't be reasoned with. When I closed my eyes, I saw that blank oval head pressed to glass. 2 days later, in daylight, the storm had cleared enough that the roads were passable. I told myself I was going to prove it had been my nerves and the weather. I drove back out toward that side of town under a pale winter sun that made the snow sparkle and made everything less threatening.
The street was the same. The woods were the same. The driveway was still long and still sloped up to the colonial house. But in the daylight, something stood out immediately. A for sale sign at the end of the driveway. It looked weathered, like it had been there long enough for multiple storms to beat it up. I didn't drive up. I stayed at the bottom and stared. The house looked empty, even in the sun, like the windows were dead eyes instead of glass. Back home, I typed the address into Zillow. The listing said the house had been vacant and on the market for over a year. The photos showed the same living room, empty hardwood, bare walls. And one of the pictures, standing in the center of the room like it belonged there, was the mannequin in the gray suit. The listing didn't mention it. No included with purchase, no staging item. It was just there, like the photographer thought it was part of the architecture. I zoomed in on the mannequin's head until the pixels smeared. No face, no detail, just that smooth oval, reflecting the flash. I checked the date the listing was posted. It had been updated multiple times, which meant real people were going in and out of that house. Agents, buyers, inspectors. So I called the number on the listing. A realtor answered, cheerful, professional. I asked, as casually as I could, if the property was occupied. She said no, it was vacant. I asked if anyone was living there temporarily. She said absolutely not. I asked if there was anything inside the living room. She laughed and said the place was basically empty. My mouth went dry. What about, like, a mannequin? I asked. There was a pause, long enough that I could hear her breathing. Then she said, slower, "Where did you hear that?" I told her I delivered food there. Another pause. Then, still calm, but now tight, she said, "That house doesn't have power right now."
It's winterized. No one should be there. Did you see a vehicle? I said I saw old tire tracks, but no car. Her voice got quieter. You need to call the sheriff. I did. I explained the delivery. I left out the moving part at first because I wanted to sound sane. The dispatcher asked if anyone threatened me. I said no. She asked if anything was stolen. I said I didn't go inside. She said they'd log it, but without a clear crime, they might not be able to do much. Then, because I was tired of swallowing my own fear, I told her the last part, that the mannequin had moved. The dispatcher didn't laugh. She didn't even sound surprised. She just asked me to repeat the address. A week later, I got a call from a deputy. He said they'd gone out to the property after my report. The front door was locked. No signs of a break-in. The power was indeed off. The living room was empty. No mannequin? I asked. He paused. There was something, he said carefully, but not where you said it was. He told me they found a mannequin in the upstairs hallway, positioned at the top of the stairs like it was waiting. Gray suit, smooth head, and beneath it on the floorboards were faint drag marks through dust, thin lines like someone had pulled it into place. Do you think someone's messing with people? I asked. He said the house had been a problem before. Teenagers sneaking in, vandals, urban explorer types. But then he added something that made me stop breathing for a second. We found your delivery photo on the app, he said. The one you took on the porch. I told him yes. In the reflection of the bay window, he said, you can see the living room, and the mannequin is already at the glass. My skin went cold, even in my warm apartment. That's not possible, I said. When I took the photo, I hadn't looked yet. I'm just telling you what the picture shows, he replied.
After that,
The deputy said they were going to keep an eye on the property. He suggested I avoided it, like I needed the suggestion. I stopped delivering on that side of town. I started checking addresses before accepting orders, even if the payout was big. I started avoiding long driveways into woods during storms, because a snowstorm doesn't just hide what's out there, it muffles you if you scream. And here's the part that still makes my stomach twist. About a month after the incident, another storm rolled in. Lighter than the February one, but still enough to make the road shine. I was sitting at home when my phone buzzed with a notification from the delivery app. Not an order, a message. No profile photo, no name I recognized. Just a single line of text, like a delivery note. Do not look in the windows.